I wonder if you can update us on the situation. There have been several arrests following this atrocity. Do we have any idea yet whether Jihad al-Shami acted alone, or are police working on the theory that this was a conspiracy?
Well, it's too early to say. The police investigation is continuing at pace, and as you and all your viewers know, the attacker was shot dead at the scene, but 4 other people are in custody as we speak. The police are continuing to investigate. Once we know more about the planning and the preparation of this attack, we will be able to draw some wider conclusions about the nature of the attack. But for now, it has obviously been declared a terrorist incident. We know this was an antisemitic terror incident that took place on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Beyond that, at the moment, it is too early to draw wider conclusions about the exact nature of how that attack came to take place.
We've heard several times, and Anna was just saying it here, that Jewish people say they were shocked but not surprised. This was not unexpected. What would you say this morning to British Jews who say they no longer feel safe in their own country?
Well, look, this entire situation is absolutely devastating for us as a country. It's devastating that an anti-Semitic terrorist attack took place in our country. First time in a very, very long time that Jews have been murdered in our country for being Jews. And of course, it's devastating to hear people of our Jewish community say that they do not feel safe in what is their own land, their own country, the place where they have been living for a very long time. And I think that is a challenge to all of us across society and us in government as well, to think carefully about what we do to stem the rising tide of anti-Semitism in this country, and to give confidence to the British Jewish community that Jewish life will continue to flourish here in the United Kingdom. In our immediate response to what has happened on Thursday, we've increased police presence across all synagogues in the country, as well as other places of interest to the Jewish community, schools and other community facilities as well. We'll carry on doing that. We will work closely with the Community Security Trust. I'm already strengthening powers on protests as well. But of course, as the weeks and months go by, we will be thinking carefully about what further measures and levers we can pull in order to bring down that rising tide of anti-Semitism and really give confidence to one of our valued minority communities that this land is their land too.
I want to come to the issue of demonstrations in a second, because that is clearly part of it. But I want to take up with you, I guess, the depth of feeling within the Jewish community. And I'm just going to play a clip of the reaction to your colleague, David Lammy, on Friday here in Manchester.
I have great pleasure in introducing our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. And before I do, please, we know how we all feel.
Should that reaction be a cause for reflection amongst ministers about whether you answered the calls of Jewish leaders previously to stop demonstrations that many Jews felt were intimidating?
Well, look, I was there with David at that vigil on Friday. We, of course, hear the strength of feeling. I think it's important for government ministers to attend those sorts of community events, even when it's difficult. We met people who were in deep pain. A true tragedy has occurred for a community that is very tight-knit and who are feeling extremely vulnerable. We hear and feel that strength of feeling ourselves, and it is why, we are committed to dealing with anti-Semitism in all of its forms. It's why I'm taking further measures in strengthening powers in relation to protests.
Forgive me, Home Secretary, this is, that reaction was really about you and your government, wasn't it? It was about what that group would see as the failure to stop the weekly demonstrations, particularly in the centre of London. It was about the decision to recognise Palestine. It was about the sense that pretty much every other minority gets its say, but Jews, as the phrase now goes, don't count. That's what they think about your government.
Well, look, I mean, people are entitled to their views, and of course, we were there to hear those views. What I would say is that the attack that took place, the person that's responsible for that attack is the attacker himself, and of course 4 other people are in custody, and the police investigation does need to take its course. It's important that we don't elide that into the wider questions of what's going on in the Middle East. It is our view, and we've been working ever since we were elected, putting our shoulder to the wheel, doing the difficult and very delicate work of diplomacy to push for peace in the Middle East, because it is our view that the only way to ensure the long-term safety and security of all of the people of Israel and Palestine as well is to push for a two-state solution. It's why we've recognised the state of Palestine, because we see that as part of the push for peace, which in the end I think is the thing that the vast majority of people do want to see. I appreciate that in terms of reaction it feels like they're very connected, but it is important that we do acknowledge one is a matter of a conflict in the Middle East that the British government is playing its full part in trying to bring that to an end, and this is an attack that's occurred on our own soil, for which we need to make sure that all of the measures we have in place for the protection of our own people are in the right place, and that's what I'm focused on.
You said this morning that you'll legislate to give police new powers to ban repeated demonstration. Would that have stopped the pro-Palestinian demonstrations that came repeatedly in London earlier this year, and would it have prevented yesterday's demonstration?
Well, look, the strengthening of the legislation that I'm going to bring about is based on the ability of the police to place conditions and restrictions on protests. And what I will be making explicit is that cumulative disruption, that is to say the frequency of particular protests in particular places, is in and of itself a reason for the police to be able to restrict and place conditions. That is to say they can move them to a different place, they can restrict the time that those protests can occur on. So that will unlock all of the broader measures that the police can already do on protests. It's been clear to me in conversations in the last couple of days that there is a gap in the law and there is an inconsistency of practice. So I'll be taking measures immediately to put that right, and I will be reviewing our wider protest legislation as well, to make sure the arrangements we have can meet the scale of the challenge that we face, which is protecting the right to protest, but ensuring that our communities can go about their daily business without feeling intimidated, and also that public order can be maintained.
Home Secretary, is part of the problem that we're seeing now a consequence of your government's decision to prescribe Palestine action? We now have the spectre of the Metropolitan Police having to be deployed in huge numbers to cart people away from Parliament Square or streets of Westminster. They can't be doing that and at the same time be protecting mosques unless they've got more people. But actually, the Met now says it's going to lose 1,700 people. Are you asking Rachel Reeves for more money to square this circle?
Well, there's a number of issues there, Trevor. Let me just deal with the first. I have no truck with this argument that suggests that merely holding up a placard somewhere in central London somehow shouldn't have a police response. If you're supporting a prescribed organisation, you are breaking the law of our land. That organisation has been prescribed. It is an offence to show support for that organisation. People might not like that decision. They might have questions about the way that the anti-terror laws work in this country, but there is no excuse for holding up placards supporting a banned organisation. That will always be met with a police response. And on the wider point, I am, of course, in contact with the police on a regular basis, as you would expect me to be, about how we manage the resourcing of all of the different challenges that the police face. There are a number of groups that are taking part in different protests. There's those on Palestine Action, the wider pro-Palestine movement. We've seen some parts of the far right on the march as well as other groups too. So it is a big policing challenge. I am assured by the police for now that we are able to meet the scale of that challenge. But of course, it's my job to make sure that the police are always in a position to respond to the challenges they face, and I will obviously do so.
To be clear, Sir Mark Rowley has said in the last 2 or 3 days that he cannot both do what they had to do yesterday and do what he would like to do in protecting Jewish communities. He's been pretty clear about that. He's also been clear previously that he's going to lose officers. The number that's been mentioned is 1,700. How can you square that circle?
Well, look, I've been talking not just to Mark, but to other police leaders as well, all across the country. I've been assured that they are able to manage the challenges that they currently face. But of course, this is going to be an intense discussion over the coming weeks and months. It is my job as Home Secretary to make sure they have the resources they need to police the various challenges that are presenting themselves. And I acknowledge that there is a huge uptick in the demands for the police. We have a whole range of protests. We've had a number of near misses around migrant hotels. A mosque was set on fire last night. We've had an anti-Semitic terrorist attack on UK soil as well. I think we should all acknowledge the complexity of the picture that the police are dealing with. Okay. I will, of course, respond, and if there are questions on funding, I'm sure we will deal with them in the weeks and months to come.
But you're cutting police numbers in the face of all of that. That must be a mistake.
Well, no, since we've been in office, we've had a particular focus on neighbourhood policing because we know that crime on high streets is preventing people from being able to go about their daily business. And we know that neighbourhood policing is a key part of ensuring that our citizens can use their own high streets, can go to the shops without fear. And that is a priority for us as a government. Of course, there are competing challenges here. And as I said, I will work very closely with the police in order to deal with those.
All right. President Trump has said that he thinks that a halt to hostilities in Gaza is in sight. Mr. Netanyahu's holding out the prospect of hostages being free in days. Do you agree with that? And what part is our government playing in getting this agreement over the line?
Well, look, any prospect for bringing this horrific war to an end is something to be welcomed. And the government, the Prime Minister directly, our Foreign Secretary, have all been putting their shoulder to the wheel as part of the diplomatic effort to try and bring about an end to this war. So we welcome all and any steps that can get us to a ceasefire and then in the medium term towards a peaceful resolution of this conflict. It is what we have long called for, and I know that the Prime Minister directly has been playing a key part in those negotiations that take place often behind the scenes, but encouraging and pushing all of our partners in the region to really focus on bringing this war to an end.
This week, or last week I should say, of course, was Labour conference. People emerged from that conference talking about you as a future Labour leader, which of course would no doubt destroy any prospects you have of that. But let's talk, can I ask you about the Labour Party itself for a moment and its policies? The Conservatives said this morning that they would deport 150,000 illegal immigrants a year. They would withdraw from the ECHR. Would you consider derogating from the ECHR? I know you're reviewing Article 8, right to family life and all of that. If you think it's necessary to get immigration numbers down?
We don't think it's necessary. We've already made that judgment call. The Prime Minister himself has been very clear. We are not leaving the European Convention. It underpins a lot of our other international agreements, including returns agreements that we have with other countries, including the French agreement under which we are currently returning people. So if the Tories are proposing ripping that up, I think the first question for them is to explain how they're going to go about that, what the impact of that is going to be, and what other changes they're going to have to make in order to not risk the agreements that underpin at the moment some of our ability to return people to their own countries. But the wider point that I would make is I'm afraid to say the Tories have zero credibility in this area. They were in government for 14 years. They've suddenly discovered a zeal for reform that they did not have when they were in office, and they really do need to explain why, with immigration enforcement, which we already have in this country, they might not know about it because they barely availed themselves of it when they were in government. Removals were down under the Conservative Party. Removals of foreign offenders were down under the Conservative Party. They've all gone up under the first year of a Labour government.
Home Secretary, just very finally, because I know you've got to go, I want to come back to Jihad al-Shami. What will be inexplicable to many is how a man who grew up in Manchester, a naturalised British citizen, held the views he did, and why he was ready to take the actions he did. I know this is something you thought about a lot. Have we failed on integration?
I think there is a question for us to ask ourselves on integration. You're right, Trevor, when somebody who has grown up with all of the advantages of this society, all of the freedoms, the rights, but also the responsibilities that go alongside that, why do people do these acts? It does feel inexplicable, but it is the job of a government, and particularly one that cares about bringing our country together and making sure all of our citizens are integrated and feel safe. It is our job to think long and hard about why that is happening. But it's why I'm also clear that the first responsibility lies with the attacker himself. I think once the police investigation has completed, we will know more about the things that led up, the way that he planned this. We'll learn more about his mindset. Once we know the answers to those questions, I do consider it my responsibility, as well as that of the wider government, to draw wider lessons on integration and other issues in the country. So I can rest assured for your viewers, I do recognise that there is a problem here, and it is one for us as a government to think deeply about and to try and come up with solutions that actually work. This is a man that was not known to the security services. This is a man that was not known to prevent, which is our main mechanism for preventing people from committing terrorist attacks and going on that journey of extremism. So I think there will be some wider lessons that we can draw once we know more of the facts of this case.